And welcome back. The amazing Kim Davis joins us right now. Of course, she is a pediatric sleep consultant, and she also runs Babes and Beyond. Kim, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Wonderful to have you back on
Thank
Daytime.
you. I love being here.
We love having you. Now,
Thank you.
Okay, we're talking about, this doesn't sound like much fun at all.
No, it's
Nightmares.
not. I know.
Night terrors.
Yes, and they're horrible for families to go through. You know, the last thing you want to see is your child screaming or thrashing around, you know, looking for help, and you don't know what's going on, right? So that's why I wanted to come on to distinguish the two, because there's a big difference between nightmares and night terrors and how you actually handle them.
They're both not good, though.
No, they're not good. They're scary, right? So that's the last thing you want to see is your child go through something scary.
Can you have, just out of the gate, as an adult, I know we still have nightmares as adults, but do you have night terrors when you're an adult?
Not so much. It's usually the nightmares that you have, because nightmares, they'll be kind of, your day is processed, and that's kind of how you go through them. Most of the time you see night terrors happen between the ages of 3 and 6.
Okay.
It's usually around those times, I should say, that they'll start to show.
Okay. So are we going to differentiate between nightmares and night terrors?
Yes, because there's a big difference, and you want to know the difference because there's a different way of handling them. So a nightmare, according to the National Sleep Foundation, are dreams that have vivid and disturbing content, and they happen during REM sleep. So that's rapid eye movement sleep, when we dream. So that's where you're going to see your child, you know, waking up and they're terrified, screaming, crying, but they remember the dream, and that's the key, right? They can recall what has happened, and so that's how you distinguish it, that it's a nightmare. And so when they have these nightmares, they're able to tell you what happened, and so you can actually help them through that. And so in order to help them with the nightmares and how you can treat them, is that you can really validate their fears, because the last thing you want to do with them is to say, oh, it's not real, don't worry about it, just go back to sleep, because for them it's very real, and you don't want to kind of push it away and ignore it, right? So their imagination becomes very active between the ages of 3 and 6, and it's hard for them to distinguish between what's real and what's not real. So by you pushing it aside is not going to help them kind of work through their fears and anxieties, right? So what I ask families to do, and it's helped a lot, is when they recall what's happened, change the ending, right? So make it humorous, make it a fun ending. So when they go back to sleep, that's what they're thinking about, and not all the scary things that they just woke up to. Yeah,
wow.
So
Wasn't
it really helps.
Fun?
I know, right?
That was a fun nightmare,
well,
right?
you change it, right? So if they enjoy like puppies or whatever it may be, right? You kind of switch it around, and that's what they go back to
Fair
sleep
enough.
with. Yeah.
So the night terrors.
Yes, night terrors are horrible for parents to go through and to watch, because they happen when your child is in a really deep sleep and they're transitioning in through those sleep cycles, right? So they're still asleep, and there's thrashing, there's screaming, there's crying, and when you run into the room because you think that there's something terribly wrong, that they're not aware that you're there. They're, you know, you're trying to help them, but they're not responsive to any support. And that's a really big difference between the nightmare and the night terror, that they're not responsive to any of your support. So, you know, when you're a parent and you're trying to help your child, because when they look at you, it's almost like they're looking through you, right? There's nothing there at all. So the best advice that I can give parents is to help them through that stage, help them get back into that next sleep cycle. So you don't want to be shouting at them, you don't want to be like kind of touching them and trying to wake them up, because that sometimes causes more anxiety for them, right?
I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty scary, and I've had some friends who've actually gone through this, and sometimes, you know, they'll last from 10 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes even longer. And if they're older, sometimes what happens too is they'll start to sleepwalk. So you have to be very careful that their surrounding is safe if you suspect that your child is actually having night terrors.
Okay, so less than 2 minutes here, and I know, so we want to get to a couple of tips that make it so these don't happen.
Right. So
how's that even possible?
Well, one thing that they found through all the research is that nightmares and night terrors are caused by children being overtired. That's a big thing, right? So you want to remember to have an appropriate age, bedtime for their age, and to really figure out, you know, the content that they're listening to, they're watching, evaluate that to make sure it's also age appropriate as well. There's some triggers that you can look for. So if there's something going on at school, if there's something that they're watching, could be food sensitivities as well that causes these things. So you want to take a really good look at what's going on to see if you can find those triggers and to evaluate what's going on. So those are some tips that I'd recommend.
It's got to be a challenge, though, because you don't know what's happening in the schoolyard throughout the course of the day.
Well, that's it, right? So I'm all about the why. I want to know why things are happening. So if you dig down deep and you can actually have a sleep log that you can fill out and write down, because those triggers are going to come alive, right? You're going to see the patterns of if they're going to bed too late, if there's something going on at school, the moods that they come home in. And sometimes when you dig a little bit deeper, that's when you get the answers.
Okay.
So I suggest to dig down deep and see what they are.
It doesn't sound like fun stuff at all.
It's not. It's really hard to watch your child go through that, right? So, and when you're on the Facebook mom boards and everything like that, I've seen a lot of it in the last little while. So that's why I wanted to come on and kind of help some families out.
Well, I'm very glad you did, because I didn't know that there was an actual difference between
Yes.
nightmares and night terrors.
There is,
so
yeah.
thank you. Babesandbeyond.com
That's it.
is your
That's
website.
it.
Kim Davis, Pediatric Sleep Consultant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you as always. Have a good day.